Welcome to the Dr. Daf Show. Today I have a beautiful mommy with me, Morgan Tyler. Morgan Tyler is a Virginia Beach native, married, and a mother of 3 beautiful children. Her motherhood journey began when she was 19 years old and since became very passionate about motherhood. Morgan has had that passion to help millennial women to redefine what motherhood is and how women can embrace themselves through the ups and downs of motherhood. Morgan founded the Millennial Moms Club, where she creates conducive spaces and a sense of belonging for all women all over the world. She highlights the joys and challenges of motherhood and how to practice self-care on this beautiful journey. She's also a co-host on Moms Actually, where motherhood meets sisterhood, a platform for honest conversations designed with moms in mind. So we're super excited to have Morgan here. Welcome. I'm Dr. Michelle Daf, host of the Dr. Daf Show, where life-changing conversations happen.
I think femininity is whatever you make.
On my show, I interview some of the most influential women who share their trials.
I used to shoot drugs in 1989.
Successes.
In that day, I was free from the past.
And life-altering lessons. My show also highlights femininity, elegant living, and embracing your God-given womanhood with helpful and healing conversations.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. This is really cool. I'm like, wow, it's nice to be able to come and just talk and, share with other women who are watching this and just sit and talk with another mom because you're a new mom.
Yes, I'm a new mom. So I've learned a lot from you.
Really?
Having 3 children, I'm like, how is she doing this? I think it's inspirational.
You know what? It's a question I get asked all the time. And it's funny because I think I've been doing it for so long. I mean, I had my first child when I was 19 and I quickly kind of like threw myself into motherhood, or I was thrown into motherhood. But I just kept doing it. And then it, going through the motions and figuring out what works, what doesn't work. And my life externally from motherhood never really slowed down because I'm also married to a pastor. So that life in general is very, very like, we're never stopping.
Yeah, you're always moving.
So you learn how to adjust. You learn how to adjust your life. And along the way, I realized there's certain things that like aren't going to work as far as how I take care of myself. And I'm just like, okay, well, let's adjust. Let's figure it out. I don't do it all. It seems like I do. Some things drop and then I pick them back up.
That's how you have to do it. That's the only way. So at 19, you had your first child.
Yes. Well, I was pregnant at 19, had my daughter at 20.
At 20.
Yes.
My sister also had her daughter at 20. So I know that going in at such a young age, it just brings a different dynamic to your life.
Yes.
How was it for you transitioning from being like basically a teenager into being a mom?
You know what? It was something that honestly, I wasn't expecting it. And this is actually something that I don't talk about really ever. But I also had so many issues with my, like I have endometriosis and ovarian cysts and things like that. And to be told, probably sounds horrible, but I didn't think I could get pregnant. So I played with fire a lot. with at the time my fiance, but I just never even like thought of the thing of like motherhood. And when I was kind of like, when I got pregnant, I was like, okay, all right, Lord, cool.
So you were happy about it?
Yeah, I think I was like, of course you're 19. You know what I'm saying? So you have all of the like anxieties of, oh my goodness, I'm still basically a baby. I was always mature and I've always been like beyond my years, I feel like. But I definitely was like, okay, but you have a human, someone who's like now looking at you for everything that they need. What is that about to look like? You know what I mean? And so I think I just kind of I just rolled with it.
But when you were a teenager, you thought that you could not have a baby or you couldn't get pregnant. How did that affect you in terms of just...
I think because it was so much turmoil of like health-wise, I was always going through something. I was always in the hospital. I was always like in my bed, curled up because I couldn't move. And I was just going through so many like health issues that I never really completely even digested the fact that like, oh my gosh, you really may not be able to have children. And maybe it'll happen, but like right now, the only thing I could really wrap my mind around was the fact that I was going through so much internally. And then when it happened, I was like, okay. And I think, again, the person that's a little bit more wiser beyond their years, something said, okay, God has a plan. Because now I'm 31, 3 kids later, I've, had surgeries and I can't have kids anymore. 2 years ago, I had like a partial hysterectomy because of the endometriosis was so bad. Okay. Also had like cervical cancer and all of that like happened. And if I wasn't, thrusted into motherhood that young, I would have never had children. So it's another one of those reasons why over the years, I have really taken what has been like given to me and really, really like embraced it the best way I can because I know that God has a plan.
Always.
He always has a plan. And it definitely blows my mind because I think sometimes we look at our circumstances and we look at what is in our lap and we're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This is uncomfortable. I don't feel equipped. But then he always makes a way. He always gives wisdom and brings someone along that can help you or something of that nature. And I was able to do that. And I finally like took it upon myself to say, hey, whatever you have in your hands, you're going to use it to the best of your ability. And now you have 3 humans depending on you and looking at you and watching you. And I have 2 daughters. And so I wanted to be able to show them that like, no matter what, you can do it. Like no matter what life throws at you and it's not the end. Because I think sometimes, especially as a 19-year-old, if you're pregnant, you're like, oh, this is the end. Got it.
And
like,
people tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, I remember with my sister, people would tell her like, oh, your life is over.
Yeah.
And it was just so demoralizing because let me tell you, it was still a choice for her to decide to keep her child.
Absolutely.
Some people around her maybe didn't make that decision. So she felt like, look, I'm doing what I should be doing. Yeah. Even though I made a mistake. Yeah. But I'm going through with it. And that in itself is honorable, and especially in this day and age.
Yes. It's something that I thought about, or I kind of think about every once in a while. But, like you said, at that time, you still have a choice, And it never crossed my mind. As young as I was, as scared as I was, it was never a thought that like, oh my gosh, maybe I should just, make the decision to, not keep the baby because I'm not ready or whatever the case may be. And of course, like you said, you have friends and family that are like, are you sure? And I was in college still, all of these things. So I'm like, but it never crossed my mind. I was like, okay, I'm just going to switch all my on-campus classes to online classes. And, I'm going to get through this, but it never crossed my mind. And I believe that was something that God just was like, hey, I got you.
I got you. Yes.
And even though I never necessarily heard it, I felt it.
Yes. And that's still God speaking to you.
Of course.
So you talk about sometimes going through a difficult situation where people will say things like, oh, the enemy is on my back. Oh, the devil's trying to do this. The devil's trying to do that. But sometimes it's actually God. It's not the devil. Right? It's God doing whatever it is or allowing something for his purposes.
Wholeheartedly. I believe that sometimes we give the devil way too much credit. We are like, okay, I'm so stressed and, the devil's attacking me and blah, blah, blah. And now there's the like joke that, God is like, I'm one of God's strongest soldiers or whatever like that. But I really think that sometimes we are missing it. We're missing what God is trying to prepare us for. I have gone through so many different difficult seasons in my life. And some of it was like, okay, the enemy is attacking me because he sees me as a threat. That's one thing, right? But then there's another thing where it's like, no, God is preparing me for the next season. And what I need to learn right now in this season, he has like, I need to grasp that. And he wants me to grasp that because I need it for what he has for me next. The things that I'm praying for. We are so like, we can be so needy sometimes and so entitled to feeling like God is just supposed to give us what we ask for without working for it. You know what I mean? Or without being prepped or without going through something. He's just supposed to hand it to us.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. And if he does hand it to us, we'll quickly realize why we should have gone through a little bit more preparation. You know what I'm saying? Because God will do that sometimes
he
too.
will. Yeah.
Sometimes he'll be like, okay, bet. Sometimes he'll say like, you know, that's what you want. I'm going to give it to you and you're going to see. But I have looked time and time again and seen that God really will just allow certain things to happen so that I can be prepared. And so I caution people all the time, especially if it, like friends who are talking, they're like, oh, like the devil is busy. I'm like, is he?
Mm-hmm.
He probably is actually not paying you no mind right now. This is probably God trying to get through to you. This is probably God trying to say, hey, I need you to develop this skill so that you can have what I need you to have for more.
I love that. So when you're in those difficult situations and seasons in your life, how are you able to figure out what you believe is an attack versus what you believe is God pruning you?
I think the biggest thing is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship is so important. You think about your friends, you think about the people who you tangibly see and talk to all the time and that you have a closeness with.
Mm-hmm.
You know the difference between if you guys are just like, if you're just missing each other or there's something like really wrong that you need to address or adjust.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right,
And
yes.
with the relationship piece, I believe that time with him,
Mm-hmm.
being able to really like sit down and give him space to hear
Mm-hmm.
prayer and things like that. I think that those are those moments. Even, and for me, this is just me, even not in prayer sometimes. Like sometimes it's me praying and I'm like, God, I need you to reveal yourself. Like, I need you to give me an answer. I need you to let me know if this is something that I'm supposed to continue to pursue and this is something that you want to develop within me. And sometimes it comes later on in the day, later on in the week. Someone comes along and confirms his word, confirms what I've had in my heart. And again, but that's relationship.
That's right.
It's comfortability with saying, God, I don't know what you're doing right now. I'm not a fan. Because, you know, I talk to him like that. I'm like, I'm not a fan of what you're doing.
I'm not loving this.
Yeah, it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Mhm.
But I need you to make it plain of what you want me to gather from this. Because sometimes so much is going on
Yes.
that you're not even able to focus on like what the lesson is because you're so like distraught. And you're quick to say, oh, the devil is busy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just like, I need the devil to give up off of me. Like, that's all you're praying for.
And you start
Instead
feeling
of-
really bad for yourself. And you just stay in that like
that
space,
victim
that
mentality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's sometimes not the way, period.
That's When did you find God?
You know what? I have been in church almost my whole life. My mom pretty much, that was like her thing. Like she kept us in church and I've always served in church and all of these things. I think I really like myself gave my life to God maybe around like 7 or 8.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I was really young.
Okay.
But I will say, and this is something that it's interesting that you asked me this because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is those who grew up in church, we have like phases with our relationship with God because there's so many like expectations or sometimes you're just going through the motions of like what it is to be in church and to have a relationship with God. You know, you think about that best friend that you've had since you were 5 years old and calling them that best friend because they've always been there. But then if you really, really like sit down and take inventory, are you guys really best friends? Are you guys really like talking all the time?
Right.
Are you guys, you know, it's one thing because, you know, we're all adults now and we have busy schedules and, you know, you can pick up the phone and talk and it seems like you've been talking all along or whatever and you haven't missed a beat. That's one thing. But then you have people who you've been calling a friend for a long time just because of the title and just because it's comfortable.
That's right.
And it's the same thing in Christianity, especially with those who grow up in God. I think you have to be a lot more intentional with your relationship because it's very easy to fall in the mundane.
That's right.
Fall in like, oh, I'm going to church on Sunday because I've always gone to church on Sunday. I'm going to pray right now because I've always prayed right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? And really being able to kind of get out of that and dive deeper. And that's actually something that I've been really honing in on lately. Is just like, okay, Morgan, I know that you've always been with God. You've always been in church. How I have seen him kind of like reveal himself and say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still close. And I still want to be as close as you want me to be is like situations in life. He has really challenged my faith in the last year and some change. And it's required me to lean on him more. Where fear was, I had to, have faith step in. And those are the things. Those are the little things that you're like, okay, yes, I'm saved. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like practically, where are we at?
That's real. That's why it took me so long, actually, to really develop a relationship with God. And actually, it took me a long time to give my life to Jesus because I already thought I had given it to him because I'd been in church my whole life. So I didn't know the difference between actually being born again and just calling yourself a Christian. And it was a major life shift for me. But because I'd been in church the whole time, I felt like I had it already versus someone who just discovered Jesus. So you're right.
You realize the difference between like a new born again Christian and like one of us who's been like in church forever. They're like
totally different.
Sold out.
They're on fire.
On fire.
And that's incredible. And that's what ended up happening with me, but so much later in my life because I actually didn't know Jesus. I actually didn't. And I thought I did. So I
think that's good though. I think I think it's also okay to fall in love with Jesus over and over and over again. I think it's okay to realize like, okay, maybe I don't know him as much as I thought I did. And like start over.
Yes.
Because he's always there. He didn't leave.
He never leaves.
He didn't leave. And that's the beauty of it is like, he's just sitting there waiting.
This video is sponsored by myself and my luxury fragrance line, Fine Forever Fragrances. We have 3 very elegant, feminine, and unique fragrances that you would love. 2911 is our debut fragrance, which is a perfect feminine, everyday, daytime, or date night fragrance. It exudes mystery, elegance, and warmth. Silent Storm is another fragrance that we have, and that fragrance is a decadent gourmand fragrance. It's rich, it's smooth, it's refined, and it has notes of sea salt, caramel, and it gives off an alluring and captivating impression when you wear it. And our final fragrance, Mustard Seed, is a sweet aquatic floral with pineapple, jasmine, and musk. It's perfect for brunch with the girls or basking in the sunshine. It is a sophisticated and memorable fragrance. So if you love to be the best smelling woman in the room, then you have to have these in your fragrance collection. Visit fineforever.com and use the code Dr Daf for 10% off of your fragrances to support this show. Thank you.
I think that's another thing. Motherhood, parenting has really like shined a light on God's love for us.
How so?
I have moments all the time, like all the time where I'm like, God is literally parenting me through me parenting my children.
I love that.
It's so funny because I'm like, I am constantly, as a mom, as a parent, you want the best for your child and you already know what's best. You already know what needs to happen in order for a certain result to come into play. It could be as simple as, they need to eat this amount of food so that they can be nourished or whatever the case may be. And sometimes they don't want to do that. Sometimes they rather have a Pop-Tart than have a well-balanced breakfast or whatever. And you're like, hey, if you do that but so often or so much, you're going to have cavities and you're not going to be nourished to the best of your ability and all of these things, right? But they know in that moment, they're like, no, this doesn't make sense. Everything you're saying doesn't make sense. And this is what I want right now.
Right.
That's us.
Yes.
Like it was funny. I made a post a couple weeks ago and I'm like, moms always talk about the toddlers. Like we're talking about the toddlers, they stand firm in what they want. They're very like, they are sure of themselves and they really run the household. Like they're really intense and they cause us a lot of stress. You know what I'm saying? And I said, I wonder if that's how God feels about us. Like, are we the toddler?
because they're trying to gain their independence, and God wants you to have dependence on Him. And so we do act like the toddlers.
Yeah.
We do.
I'm like, God will literally be waiting for me to just say, okay, I hear you.
And I trust you.
I trust you. You're right. You know what I'm saying?
But I still want the Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he understands that.
Yeah. I think that's like really key because I feel like he's just waiting.
Always.
It's the same way that we're just waiting on our child to like get themselves together.
Yeah.
We're just waiting on our kid to be like, hey, Mom, you know what? I had that tantrum and it didn't make any sense. I was tripping. You know, that's us.
Just waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
And then you can comfort them and then, move on.
And God does that.
And God does that with us.
It's crazy, right?
It's so beautiful. How do you manage having 3 young children and still taking such great care of yourself and your husband?
You know what? What I recognize is in order to give them my best, I have to give myself my best. We hear the statement all the time, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, it's a very, very cliche.
It's overused at this point.
It's overused. However, it's so true. People say it because it's a real thing. And I think what happens though is because it's so overused, people don't really actually do what the message is saying. And I realized, I was like, hey, every time I'm running on E, I can get all the things done. Yeah. I can take care of them. I can, do what my husband needs for me to do around the house or whatever the case may be. I can do it. Yeah, it'll get done. But how do I feel at the end of the day?
Right.
Also, while I did I do it grudgingly? Did I do it with a pure and serving heart? Because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to do everything in excellence. That's what the word says, with a heart of servitude. And so did I do it that way? Or did I do it with anger and resentment? Because, even when it comes to marriage, if my husband, he's always out and he's always doing ministry and things like that, and I'm at home and I'm taking care of the kids and cooking and cleaning, do you know that if I didn't do it with a pure heart, a sane mind and body and soul, I would have resentment?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But again, people say that statement of, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup. And don't realize the little pieces that really go into filling yourself up.
So how do you fill your cup up?
I take inventory. Every day, every season looks different of what I need. Sometimes I have the ability to go without certain things. I was just telling someone this last week. I kind of think of it as like a car. When engine lights and oil lights and windshield fluid comes on, like those different lights come on, all of them are different things, right? And so I literally, whenever I'm feeling, and it's not, that's the thing also, I am proactive, not reactive, which is a learned skill. I sit down at the beginning of the week and say, Morgan, what do you need? It's not, I need a massage and I need to go get my toes done. Like, sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's, no, Morgan, you need to wake up a little bit earlier than the rest of your family so you can have quiet time. No, you need to go for a walk and like get some fresh air at some point in this week. Or, hey, you need to go and sit down with a girlfriend and just have some like girl time and adult conversation and not watch Disney Channel all day with your kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, being able to take inventory of what you need every single week. Maybe that looks like every single day, because things change. The world, outside things come and kind of shift what your plans were for the week. And so also being able to say, I know I was planning this, but now I need to kind of shift and this is what I need. And also be able to share that with my spouse.
Yes. That's so important because he has to support whatever it is you're doing. What if the person, the mom, doesn't have the ability to do those things? Maybe they're a single parent and they don't have the ability to say, I'm going to go take a walk by myself or I'm going to
I love that question because I was a single mom at one point.
Oh, were you?
So we're a blended family. My first daughter, I actually ended up not being with her dad she was probably 1, at maybe even a little bit before 1. But my husband now, he came in our lives when my daughter was 2. And we've been dating and now married for some time now. I don't know, 6, 7 years.
Okay.
But yeah, we're a blended family though. And so even though I was dating or whatever, I was a single mom for 2.5 years, I would say, until me and my husband started dating. And that definitely was something I also had to take. It's cool that I can speak to it. At first, it was like, whew.
Yeah.
This single mom thing, it is not a joke. It's not a game. It's not any of those things. But I love that I can speak to that now because I was young still. I thankfully had a support system, but at the same time, it's still nothing like having this child rely on just you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so during those times, I think I wasn't as proactive as I am now because I was young. I didn't really know what that looked like. I didn't know the warning signs. I would just find myself stressed and say, oh my gosh, I need a break. But I think if I could say something to my younger self, to that single mom that's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to wait until the end of the night where I'm crying and having a whole like breakdown or, all of those things. Maybe you can't take a walk by yourself, but maybe you can wake up earlier than your child. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe you can go ahead and plan ahead. I used to do that where I knew that, no, I'm not going to be able to leave my daughter at the moment to do something, spontaneous or go out with my girls for dinner or whatever. But I can plan ahead and go ahead and schedule weeks in advance. Like, hey, this is the day I need the sitter. And now I have something to look forward to. It's not as exciting because it's like, man, now I have to wait 3 weeks. But it's the little things. Maybe that looks like you're going to the gym. And, I know this is another thing that I hear often. People don't trust people with their kids and they don't want to leave their child with anyone or whatever the case may be. And I think that's fine. Like, we're moms, we're really protective. But sometimes it's like even family, like, trust yourself and trust that they're not going to like do anything to, trust.
You really need to trust God.
And trust God.
Because
But
really,
yeah,
you don't have any control, even with your family.
Yeah, you don't. And I think it's like sometimes that's where we get a little bit too controlling.
Yeah.
And it does sound crazy because you're like, well, that's my child. Duh. But one thing about it is we don't own our children.
That's right.
Yes, we birthed them, but we don't own them. They're still a child of God. And we're here to actually just guide them.
That's right.
We're here to like help them and mold them and shape them through the world. But at a certain point also, we're not going to be able to do that either. You know what I'm saying? It's at a certain point, they're going to come into themselves and have their own opinions and want to, do their own thing. And we're just going to have to be there.
That's right.
And so if you take that mindset of like, we only have but so much control and the rest, it belongs to God. I pray over my kids so much. Like sometimes when I can't sleep, I'll just walk around the house and just go to their rooms and pray over them because at the end of the day, we have to give them back to God every single time.
This is something I talk about often. So it's really nice hearing someone else talk about it.
Yeah, we have to give them to God because, He's just like we're His children. They are His children. Just the same way that He protects us, He protects them. It's not our job to be their God.
No. And God loves your child even more than you do, believe it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 100% pure.
Of course. Like people are like, I hear so, stories and crazy things,
Of course.
All of that. Yes. Yes.
And that's why you need the Holy Spirit because you do need to be able to discern certain people. Not everyone should watch your kid. It doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to pick up on that and spend enough time with God to be able to hear Him say, no, not this person.
Yes.
Even though they look like everything is fine. It's not okay.
Yeah. 100%. And I think if we can get that into our mind and, our spirit, then we would feel a lot more comfortable saying, okay, I'm going to the gym. They have a little kids club and I'm in the same building.
Yeah.
I'm only going to be working out for 45 minutes to an hour, I think this child will be okay in this room right now.
It's hard.
It's hard. I'm not going to act like it's not.
Yeah.
However, you will feel so much better because you need time. You need time to be able to think.
Yes.
Like, without anyone asking you for a fruit snack. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. And, for those of you who are in this situation, I mean, I do commend you for wanting to be everything for your child, because there are some moms who have the complete opposite mindset of like, it's my life. I want to live. And they give their kids to anyone.
Yeah.
And they do whatever they want because they're fulfilling their own desires, even though they have someone to care for. So it is a good thing.
Yeah.
But there is a line that has to be drawn, not just for your child, but also for you as well and your own anxiety. Have you seen people like pass down their fears to their children?
Oh, gosh.
I see that all the time. And
of course.
It's so damaging.
Here's the thing. I think that our world in general, like especially now with all the different phrases and the different types of parenting and the different just ideas of what motherhood and just life should look like, we tend to take things to the extreme. Period. Like, we forget that there's a balance in what, like, okay, take the meat and spit out the bones type of thing.
Right.
And because we forget to do that with ourselves, we then pass that on to our children. And we don't even realize it. I say this all the time. It's not what's taught, it's what's caught. And if you are sitting and you're in your household and you're saying certain things and, just spewing out things that you think they're not paying attention to, oh my goodness, they are.
They are. They pick up on it.
They pick up on it so quickly. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'll say things and weeks, months down the line, my child will bring something up that I've said. And I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah. I don't even remember saying that. And it could have been a moment where I was just blabbing, but they remember it. They internalize it. They take it in. And now they are fearing or just walking around with a certain idea in mind that was never meant to even be taken but so far. You know what I'm saying? And I think we have to caution ourselves from doing that. But it starts with us.
It starts with us. I've actually had a client once whose daughter was so unbelievably anxious. I mean, this poor child could barely even function in school. And she was afraid to walk home because she was afraid someone was going to attack her or rape her, because her mother was constantly afraid of that for her because it had happened to her as a child.
Jesus.
So that anxiety and fear was then passed down to her daughter, who had severe anxiety over something that has never happened to her. Probably, of course, would never happen to her, but took it on from her mother. And this is all too common from the things that we've experienced and just the ideologies and the things that we share with our children, trying to protect them. Yeah. But it ends up becoming a place of fear. And
it's interesting because it's actually something that one of the breeding grounds for Millennial Moms Club.
Okay.
I thought about, which is why I kind of named it that, is because I thought about just the past generation of mothers. And we think about our moms and our aunties and our grandmas, and they did the best they could. They really did. They were amazing. But there were certain things and certain ideas that they passed off out of fear, out of, well, this is how I grew up, so this is how it's supposed to be, without questioning, is this actually healthy? You know what I'm saying? I ended up dealing with postpartum depression. And as a woman of color, we are taught to be strong, to, hey, you need to suck it up and keep moving. You need to move forward. Ain't nothing wrong with you for real. Your hormones are all over the place. Actually, something is wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's right. And to be honest, I didn't even go to my family with it. So it wasn't like they told me that nothing was wrong. It was just that I had heard that so much growing up.
But what were you feeling that let you know that you were experiencing postpartum depression?
I knew something was wrong.
Was this your first child?
No.
Okay.
That's the thing.
So
my first child, my second child, Crystal, literally the best pregnancies, the best birth. Afterwards, it was regular motherhood. You just don't sleep and, that type of stuff. My third gave me a run for my money with the pregnancy, with the after. I was like, everything that I knew about motherhood was different.
Wow.
Every single thing. And that also proves like every child is different. Every situation and scenario is going to be a little bit different. And I remember I was just kind of like going through the motions and I felt a haze just over me. And I loved my son. I thought he was the best thing. And, you know, it wasn't that I didn't want to be around him because that's what when you look it up, it's like, oh, you have the baby blues and you don't like your kid and you want to harm yourself and your child. None of that. Okay. None of that. It was simply, I felt crazy. I was crying out of nowhere, felt very sad. I didn't know what I was sad about. I just knew that I was upset and sad all the time. And I didn't have any motivation to do anything but like sleep when I could, feed my child. I didn't want to talk to people. It was totally out of my normal character. And I was like, okay, I think something is going on. Everything irritated me. Even though I had a purpose in being my son's mom at the time and also my 2 other children, I felt that I had no purpose.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And I talked to my husband and I said, I think something's off. Like, I don't know what it is, but something is just not right. And he's like, okay, well, you know, what do we need? Like, what do we need to do? And that I'm grateful for him because he was always ready to jump in and say, okay, like, what is the plan?
That's so wonderful.
How do I need to, you know, act? And it was something that like, I had to be aware of my body too, because I went to the doctor and they give you this little sheet of paper and they ask you these questions. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to check the happy or the sad face and some of the questions is like, I'm not even feeling that. So I'm just going to put in A, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I think in that moment, I just knew I need to figure this out. I need to, seek help and, you know, do whatever they were asking me to do. They put me on medicine, but I hated it. So I stopped taking it. And I actually I started praying hard. I started praying really hard. And I was like, God, I tried the medicine. I tried to talk to someone. This is where I need you to step in. And I think it's like being able to say, I am weak. And I need your strength to be perfect in my weakness. You know what I'm saying?
It's like that dependence, yes.
Yes.
Dependence he's looking for.
Yeah.
He's right there. Jesus was right there with you.
Every single time. And I think I always, even though it was very rough to go through, it's something that I'm grateful that I went through because now I can help other moms. And at the time, again, there was nothing really out there to say like, hey, this is what you're probably going through. Like, you're not crazy. Because that's what we think. We think like, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy. But to be able to have somebody say, hey, I know what this looks like. I know what this feels like. And you're going to get through it. And like, you have someone to talk to and, you know, resources and things like that. That is what fueled me to keep going.
That's such a blessing.
Yeah.
Your husband sounds like a wonderful partner, very loving and supportive. Did you see yourself as being a pastor's wife?
No. I can answer that very fast. No.
But how has stepping into that position helped change your life?
Honestly, I think that, again, it's funny how God works. It really is. I think that it has caused me to live out loud in my faith. It's caused me to be able to not only use my story and my voice, but to really be able to like be a champion for other women. And I don't know that I would have been as like vocal or I don't know. I mean, I thought I was going to be like an actress or a dancer or something like that when I was growing up. I didn't think I was going to be doing any of this. So I didn't know, or I actually thought either that or just I was going to be behind a desk for the rest of my life. So I think being married to a pastor, it has kind of thrusted me into a certain world and challenged my faith, because being in ministry, especially as a family, it's a whole nother mantle that a lot of people don't understand. But it's very crazy.
Do you get a lot of like pushback from people in the congregation just about like the way you dress or your social media? It's just you. Because pastors' wives are always under like a little microscope, you know?
They are. It's actually one of the reasons why I never desired that because, again, I grew up in church and I grew up in a really big church too. And I had like a front row seat to how church world works, you know? And yes, I remember when my husband and I first got married, we weren't even married yet. We were still dating. And it was a constant like microscope pretty much. Yeah. And to be totally honest, it fueled me to continue to be me.
That's good.
Yeah, it really did. I said to myself, and I said this to my husband when we first, before we even got married, I said, hey, I realized that this is the call on your life. Okay. And this is where we are. This is what our life is going to look like. But I am requesting that you allow me to be me. And you allow me to not conform. You know what I'm saying? And he's the same way. Okay. He's actually extremely not like, he's not the average looking pastor either. Okay. And so it works for us. However, there's an expectation. For sure. Period. Of the congregation, and they want you to look and act and speak a certain way. And I really said, not only do I want to be the champion for moms and redefine what motherhood is looking like in this day and age, but I also want to be a voice for women who are in the church and in ministry and not conforming, because for what? That's pretty much what it is. Like, why? Because how I dress or how I live in a way of like being audacious and bold and not quiet and shrinking. Because to be totally honest, that's what they want. That's what they want you to do. Absolutely. They want you to be quiet. And thankfully, I've never been a part of a church that has tried to shrink me. Thank the Lord. I didn't want that. Yeah. And I wanted other women to know that, hey, you can be a leader in the church. You can be right next to your husband and support him and, walk with him in his ministry journey and be you and like do your thing. Yeah. And that's okay. And I love it now because I get a lot of, comments and they're like, thank you for being authentic. Yes.
We need to see that. We love to see that.
Because I think it's important because now I can speak to you and you feel like, hey, you're not just talking to me because you want to like say something spiritual or you want to say something that sounds good. But no, you're talking to me because you can relate and you've been through it before and things like that. I never want to feel like I'm above someone. And sometimes when you're quiet and you're shut off or kind of in that little box that, we've tried to be put in, it's hard to relate. And it's hard to like actually reach people in that way, to me.
I think a lot of them do try, but they've been scarred by people. Yeah. I think that's what usually happens. They have to end up going into that shell.
I won't lie and say I haven't been because, again, like I said, I've had a lot of people that do say things, but what I learned is that the more I pay attention to what someone else feels about me, it's taking away from what God says about me. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Because I know that God knows my heart. God knows where I am and our closeness and our relationship and what I desire to do. Every time I speak, every time I go anywhere, I say, let them see you in me. You know what I'm saying? And as long as I'm being cautious and I'm stewarding my position well, that's all I have to worry about.
So just tell us about Millennial Moms Club.
Oh, my baby. Millennial Moms Club really is just a place and a space. It's actually now a philosophy. I don't want people to ever think, oh, I'm not a millennial, so I can't be a part of the club. Or I can't follow this page and have this resource. No, it's a philosophy. It's a way of life. We are literally redefining what motherhood looks like, one woman at a time. It is about knowing that you can do it all. You don't have to do it all, but you can have it all, period. And I think it's just being able to see Black and brown women specifically, because when I started it, it wasn't there. We had a lot of bloggers out, but there were no mom pages out saying, none. I searched high and low because that's when I had postpartum. And I was like, there's got to be someone talking about this. And it wasn't. And so I wanted there to be a space where you can feel comfortable and safe and say, hey, me too. And then find another mom like in the community as well to say, okay, because that's the first thing to go is like your friends when you become a mom.
I know.
Unfortunately, but just to be able to find a space that's safe, that is helping you and providing resources and really just reminding you that you are that girl. No matter what.
I love it. Yes. So where can they find you, Morgan?
Gosh, you can find me, at _ the Millennial Moms Clubs. That's what we just talked about. And then you can find me, my personal page, The Morgan Tyler. I just started my TikTok too.
Oh, fun.
I just started. I was like, let's have fun up there.
That's right.
I'm the same. It's just The Morgan Tyler, just with 2 E's.
That's it. Well, we are so blessed to have you on the show today. You've shared so much with us that I know so many women are going to be able to relate to and hopefully be inspired and encouraged in their own lives as mothers or as young moms to be able to see you and look like, wow, someone did it. Someone went from being a young teenage mom, single mom, to being happily married to a wonderful man and starting something that will help other women. It's such an inspiration.
I am very grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to be able to do this because that's really, at this point, this is my mission in life, is just to be able to have someone see themselves in me and say, oh my gosh, like I can do it. Like I can get up again and I can go for everything that God has for me, even while I take care of these kids.
And a husband.
Yeah. And because, we have our daughters. I have
a son.
A son. But even that, I think about having a son too. And I'm like, I want him to be able to see his mom. And one day he's going to look at his wife and expect, a certain thing. But I'm the model.
I'm the model. Absolutely.
I'm the model,
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's an honor. And thank you all so much for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Introducing Silent Storm, the fragrance. Fine forever.